Welcome back to the Rules Plus podcast. For this episode, I'm going to continue the Siblings Project, my ongoing consideration of 15 pairs of rules concepts that I've characterized as siblings separated at birth that are nevertheless engaged with each other. In previous episodes, I discussed the similarities and differences between the poles of the first two of the 15 rules dyads I've promised to look at. The first was kicker versus passer, covered in episode 5, and the second was illegal pass versus intentional grounding, covered in episode 7. Beginning with this episode, I'll be looking at the next 4 dyads over the next several episodes, all related to the kicking game. They are free kick versus scrimmage kick, field goal versus the try, field goal versus punt, and scrimmage kick that crosses the neutral zone versus scrimmage kick that doesn't cross the neutral zone. But before I discuss the ongoing business of the Siblings Project, as I promised in the last episode, I'll quickly address 2 interesting plays that were discussed in our first Zoom Rules Plus study session this past Monday to kick off our season of AFOA meetings. The topic for Monday's Rules Plus study session was the 2023 rules changes, which were covered in this podcast in late June and early July in the first 2 episodes. Our discussion comprised a look back at the 2022 rules changes, followed by reflection about 5 play situations useful for considering the implications of the 2023 changes. This podcast covered 3 of those plays back in episode 1, but we didn't consider the 2 other plays, which I review here since they generated useful questions and clarifications. Play 1. When to start the clock after a change of possession is nullified by penalty. You'll recall that one of the 2023 NCAA rules changes eliminates stopping the clock after a first down by Team A, except under 2 minutes to go in either half. The UIL has issued an exception to this change for Texas high school games. So while this change is irrelevant to us, it did present in our meeting an opportunity to visit an important, oft-neglected timing-related topic regarding when to start the clock late in a game after a change in possession is nullified by a penalty for a Team B foul. Here's the scenario. Team B leads 35-34 with 56 seconds left in the 4th period. With 3rd and 12 on its own 18-yard line, A16's pass is intercepted by B45, who A, runs for a touchdown, B, runs and is tackled in bounds at the A12, C, runs and is pushed out of bounds at the A12, or D, runs and fumbles at the A32, where A76 immediately recovers the ball while grounded in bounds. In scenarios A, B, and C, B68 was offside at the snap. In scenario D, there was no foul during the play. The critical timing question in the last minute of the game concerns whether to start the clock on the referee's signal when the ball is ready for play, or to start the clock when the ball is snapped. And since there is less than 1 minute to go in this current scenario, it's also necessary to consider whether Team A should be given an option for a 10-second runoff. Let's consider first whether a 10-second runoff situation exists here, because clearly the Team A coach will accept the penalty. So for parts A through C, his option to start on the ready or on the snap will determine what we would do. For part D, however, we would still need to know what to do with the clock by rule. It turns out that it should be readily apparent that a 10-second runoff would not be in play here. An offside foul without contact by Team B neither prevents the snap nor stops the game clock immediately. So the relevant rule for all four of the scenarios is 3-3-2 regarding starting and stopping the clock. The key to applying this rule properly is to sort out from among a number of events that would stop the clock which event ultimately is the reason for stopping the clock. In scenario A, there are two events that would stop the clock: the scoring run by Team B and/or the flag for offside by Team B. In scenario B, there are two such events: the turnover that would cause Team B to be awarded a first down and/or the flag for offside by Team B. In scenario C, there are three events: the turnover that would cause Team B to be awarded a first down, a run play that ends out of bounds, and/or the flag for offside by Team B. In scenario D, there is one event: the end of the second run with Team A in possession that would cause Team A to be awarded a first down. As soon as it's clear that Team A will certainly accept the penalty for Team B's foul in scenarios A, B, and C, it's also clear that the events involving Team B possessing the ball are going to disappear. As a result, the ultimate reason that the clock stops at the end of the play in scenarios A through C is if there was a foul during the down. And in scenario D, it remains true that the only reason that the clock stops is to award a first down to Team A. It turns out that in all four scenarios, Team A will have the ball for the next snap through penalty in scenarios A through C and through the fumble recovery in scenario D. So in scenarios A through D, Rule 332E1 applies. The clock starts on the referee's signal because, quote, Team A is awarded a first down either through penalty or by play, end quote. However, there is an explicit exception stated in Rule 332C that applies to scenario A. The clock will not be started after, quote, an accepted penalty erases a score, end quote. This exception can be blamed for seducing many referees to adopt a shortcut mnemonic to decide when to start the clock after a penalty erases a turnover, based on what would be done if the penalty had not been enforced. It's not clear why the exception exists, but officials should not let that exception lure them to make a critical mistake in stopping or starting the clock when making the ball ready for a subsequent play. Play 2. When fouls offset versus when fouls cancel. The second play scenario I want to share from our Monday study session is one I included to elaborate upon the implications of the rules change initiated by the UIL to restrict stand-up defenders from making immediate contact with Team A players during place kicks. In this scenario, the place kick is an attempt at the extra point after a touchdown, a situation in which there are peculiar and therefore often unfamiliar wrinkles in the default rules for scrimmage kicks, rules that are well worth reviewing. The principal lesson is to recognize the difference between offsetting fouls and fouls that cancel. Here's the scenario. With Team A in a scrimmage kick formation for an extra point attempt, B42 is in an upright stance across from edge blocker A20, positioned at a 45-degree angle to the neutral zone. At the snap, Team A has 5 players in the backfield, and B42 fakes an outside rush before shooting inside the gap between A20 and lineman A48. B42 brushes A20 within 1 second of the snap on his way to blocking the kick. B42 recovers the loose ball, and while he is returning the ball for a 2-point touchdown, B14 blocks below the waist. What is the ruling on the play? The critical judgment an official must make here is whether the brushing of A20 by B42 is a foul within the spirit of this rule, since contact occurred within 1 second of the snap. In episode 2 of this podcast, I wondered out loud whether we could read ambivalence by the UIL in creating this rule in view of the rather gaping loophole the UIL provided to allow us to judge the contact to be legal. I regard as backtracking the closing sentence the UIL included that gives officials license to ignore contact that is incidental or slight. If you rule B42 to have committed a personal foul, there are fouls by both teams, 1 by Team A and 2 by Team B, during the play, a situation that is governed by 833A. Quote, if both teams foul during the down and Team B fouls before the change of team possession, the fouls offset and the down is repeated, even if additional fouls occur after the change of possession. End quote. But if you rule B42's contact to be legal because it was incidental or slight, there are still fouls by both teams, but only 1 by Team B, a foul that occurred after the change of possession. In this case, therefore, the situation is governed by 834C. Quote, if both teams fouled during the down and Team B had not fouled before the change of team possession, the fouls cancel, the down is not repeated, and the try is over. In addition, both situations are governed by 834B because one of the teams scores. In either situation, that rule provides that, quote, a score by a team committing a foul during the down is canceled, end quote. So, if B42 did foul, the result is offsetting fouls, and Team A gets to repeat the try. If B42 did not foul, the result is canceled fouls, and the try is over. The stakes are high in making the decision whether B42's contact was a foul or incidental and slight. I'll repeat. If you read between the lines of the UIL's language, doesn't it seem the UIL is going wink, wink, make it be really, really, really big before you flag it? In the case of a try for point, your judgment concerning foul or no foul means the difference between Team A getting a second chance versus not. Okay, that finishes the appetizers for this episode. Let's move on to the main course, which is setting up consideration of the third rules siblings dyad, free kick versus scrimmage kick. Rule 216 presents 8 definitions of types of kicks without following an easily discernible organizing principle. In order, sections 2 through 9 designate a perplexing variety of ways to legally kick a ball based on a hodgepodge of foundational principles. The 8 are punt, drop kick, place kick, free kick, kickoff, scrimmage kick, return kick, and field goal attempt. How do these 8 elements of the kicking game fit together? They're certainly not listed alphabetically. Could you fashion an organization chart that would indicate some hierarchy of these distinct categories? Are these categories, in fact, distinct, or is there overlap among some of them? Such an overview of the interrelationships of these categories might help us better recall under pressure the idiosyncratic features of each kind of kick. Well, let me give it a try. I'd like to see if I can find some order in this disjointed list. It strikes me that these categories are based on answering 3 questions about a player who intentionally puts his foot to the ball. What does a player do? When does he do it? Why does he do it? The answers to what a player does provide the basis for distinguishing the first 4 types of kicks. To make a punt, a player drops the ball and kicks it before it touches the ground. To make a drop kick, a player drops the ball and kicks it as it touches the ground. To make a place kick, a player kicks the ball while it is controlled on the ground, sometimes by a teammate and sometimes by a tee. And to make a free kick, a player makes a punt, drop kick, or place kick under certain restrictions. The answers to when a player does what he does provide the basis for distinguishing the next 3 types of kicks. To make a scrimmage kick, a player makes a punt, drop kick, or field goal place kick from in or behind the neutral zone during a scrimmage down before possession changes. To make a return kick, a player makes any kind of kick that suits his fancy after a change of possession. To make a kickoff, a player makes a free kick under certain restrictions to start a half or after a scoring play by his team. What's interesting is that to make a kick that is not included in Rule 216, a player makes a free kick under certain restrictions after a scoring play by the opposing team, a safety. Curiously, the rules book has no category for such a kick, referring to it only as, quote, kick after a safety, and burying that information in Rule 852. Kickoffs follow only try downs and successful field goals. A free kick after a safety is, well, just a kick after a safety. The answer to why a player does what he does provides the basis for distinguishing the final type of kick listed. To make a field goal attempt, a player makes a place kick or drop kick in an effort to score 3 points by making the ball pass over the crossbar between the uprights of the receiving team's goal before it touches a teammate or the ground. Curiously, we are left to infer the kicker's intent because Rule 216.9 does not explicitly refer to intent. To figure out his intent, you need to go to 811 to see the point value of a field goal, and then you need to go to 841 to see what the ball must do to score a field goal. And again, another thing that is not explicitly referred to make a try for point, a player makes a field goal attempt after his team scores a touchdown. Again, curiously, you will not learn this truth in Rule 216. You must again go to 811 to learn that the kicker's intent is to score 1 point, and go to 831 to see why he must make a field goal attempt to do so. If a try for point were listed among the kick categories in 216, it would also be the case that its definition would be based on when the kicker makes what otherwise would be a field goal attempt. So, what is the point of all this hair splitting about the basis for categorizing types of kicks? I suggest that a revealing tactic for studying the dyad of free kicks versus scrimmage kicks is to include consideration of how each type of kick addresses the what, when, and why questions. For example, Which question, what, when, or why, would seem to provide a rationale for there to be a difference in how kicks that go out of bounds are treated? A free kick out of bounds, untouched by Team B, is a foul, whereas a punt out of bounds isn't. Perhaps the answer lies in the difference between the answer to the why question for free kicks and scrimmage kicks. The purpose of a free kick is to get play started or resumed. The purpose of a punt scrimmage kick is to change your opponent's field position. So, at least traditionally, until recent concerns about player safety have emerged, a free kick has been about encouraging action and building anticipation for the chance of a football equivalent of the home run, namely a kick returned for a touchdown. A free kick out of bounds is safe and boring, the football equivalent of a base on balls. A scrimmage kick, on the other hand, is about switching the field, pinning your opponent as far back as possible. So the scrimmage kick is about strategy, with the bonus that a return for a touchdown is still possible as well. A punter's skill at putting the ball out of bounds inside the 5 or getting backspin to avoid a touchback deserves support from the rules. Of course, as I just alluded to, the recent concerns about safety and concussive threats associated with kickoff plays may lead to a kinder, gentler paradigm for the purpose of kickoffs. Their purpose may be reduced to simply being a mechanism to transition from a scoring drive to the subsequent drive of the non-scoring team. The recent adjustments to kickoff rules that now allow a team to take the ball at its 25 if it makes a fair catch or allows a touchback are pretty clearly expressions of evolving intent to simply get the kickoff out of the way and get the new series set up. Might rules makers sooner rather than later simply get rid of the middleman and simply designate where the next drive after a score will begin? But at least for the present, we do indeed still have free kicks and scrimmage kicks to compare, and I think I've set the table for that conversation. The comparison will be complicated business that's best not to rush through. So tune in next week's episode as I resume this comparison in depth. I'll leave you with a seemingly straightforward play scenario to think about until next week. Consider what you would do. Here it is. On third, that's third down and 28 from the A35, with the clock stopped at 0:15, that's 15 seconds before halftime, Team A wants to play it safe and lines up in a scrimmage kick formation. By punting on third down, there's less pressure, they think, on the punter to get the kick off if something goes wrong. Punter A8 nevertheless muffs the snap at the A22. He chases the bounding ball and kicks it from on the ground at the A19 just before B16 was about to recover it. A26 recovers the ball at the A30 and stumbles forward to the A33, where he is tackled in bounds. What is the ruling? We'll resume our discussion of free kick versus scrimmage kick by discussing this play when we open next week. I hope that's a sufficient teaser to bring you back next week for an ad hoc segment from our Rules Plus meeting, and then for a continuing segment to consider this play scenario as the lead-in to resume our discussion of free kicks versus scrimmage kicks. Remember, if you're interested in information about AFOA, email us at recruiting@afoa.ws. Visit our website at www.austinfootballofficials.org or call us at 512-298-2987. Till next time, have a great week.